Hey everybody, happy Thursday. I hope you're doing well. I can't believe it is already almost May. I hope your books are going well and that you're diving into this summer with a plan. I thought this week it might be helpful to talk about a typical editorial workflow for if you're going to publish in the traditional sense. So a lot of the questions and complaints I get when people are heading into the industry on the traditional side is they don't really know what happens or what's going on. And I think that's more just to do with people that know what's going on don't think to explain it, and people that don't know what's going on are too embarrassed to ask. So I thought I'd walk you through a typical editorial workflow for if you're going through the publication process on a traditional route, just to give you an idea of the steps, what you can expect, and how you'll be moving forward in the future. So you have an agent, you have a phenomenal book, and you are moving forward. It's been sold to a publisher, you have an editor. First and foremost, congratulations. That is a huge step. I'm so excited for you, and I can't wait to read your book. Honestly, if you've got one coming out, let me know. I would love to add more to my TBR. But you've got this editor, you're sending them your book, you've gone through several rounds with your agent of editing, you've probably had several yeses and nos, rejections and acceptances from all across the board. And now that you've picked one, you've signed the contract, you're sending the book off, what happens now? So the first step is you're going to have a conversation with your editor. And you might have had this before you signed the contract, especially if you had several editors that were asking after your novel, because it is really important to make sure your editor and the publisher that you go with shares your vision. So you want to make sure you have a shared idea, shared potential for where you want the book to go, how you see it being published, where you see it fitting in the market. That way you can move together as partners on this editorial journey. So having that conversation with the editor is really important, whether it's before or after the contract, just to see where they're at and what they're thinking. As part of the acquisitions process, they've already read your novel. So now they're going to be working on actually going through it with an editorial eye and writing that editorial letter. So once that's done and they send that to you, you'll be working through that same as you always have with your agent, or if you've worked with a freelance editor before, working through those points, changing things that you feel are correct. I do want to maintain, again, even with a traditional publisher, you don't have to automatically change everything that they have in their editorial letter. It is a partnership. It is a give and take. So it is something that you want to talk with them about if there's anything that you have concerns or that you're not sold on changing once you get that editorial letter. Then you work back and forth. This is the biggest thing that I feel like authors aren't aware of in the editorial process traditionally. There are probably going to be several rounds of edits. If you ask any of my authors, they will certainly tell you this. An editor wants you to get your book to the best point it can be, not only for your vision and what you see as the book's potential, but also for how they can position that book in the market, how they can reach the correct audience, how they can have it have the most impact. And this means several rounds of developmental edits, which are focusing on the story. So plot arc questions, story questions, goals, motivations, world building pieces, making sure everything fits together, as well as looking at it from a line editing perspective. Now, line editing is not copy editing. Line editing is focusing on word choice, focusing on the flow and transition of your scenes, of your sentences, of the dialogue of the characters, of anything of that sort that's more on the line by line level. So they're doing both of these jobs at once to really get your book to the best point possible before they move forward. So it can be a bit of a lengthy process. So that's something that you should be aware of, and this is something that you should talk to your editor about in the beginning as well. Again, they've read the book already, they've seen the potential, they're obviously very excited about it, so getting an idea from them of what they think they're going to need and what's going to happen moving forward is a really great idea and something to really get you on an even level with them so you're moving forward in that partnership in the same way. So once you've finished all of the developmental line edits, your editor has signed off on it and they're like, great, this book is phenomenal, I can't wait to see it published, then the book gets transmitted. And what that means is basically the book is getting ready to go into production. Editorial is signing off on it and sending it to the production team to go into copy edits. Now, copy edits is probably the first thing that people think about when they think about the editorial process, but it's actually about the middle point. So copy edits is when the the story is completely polished, the editor and the author are happy with it, they love where it's at, and now it's just a matter of fixing grammar and spelling errors, things like that. It also goes a bit deeper than that. So copy editors also look at any factual issues. So if your story is happening in a real place, or if it is happening in present day and you said that there was a full moon on January 31st, 2021, they will go back and double check that to make sure it's correct, because they want your book to be as accurate as possible, even if it's fictional. So that's a part of their job, as well as consistency. So making sure that the character that had blue eyes in the beginning has blue eyes in the end. Now, a lot of these things your editor will catch, certainly, but again, they're focused on the bigger plot and story issues, making sure the story flows naturally, so those line edits, things like that. So while that may be something that they catch, it is certainly within the realm of copy editing as well. They're making sure, if you close the door in one scene, that it's still closed in the next scene, it's not randomly open, or again, that somebody has the same hair color or that they're the same height. So a lot of consistency issues as well. So they'll work through that novel. It can take some time depending on when the book is transmitted, because obviously within a publishing house, they have a lot of manuscripts going through because they have a very regulated process. So depending on when your manuscript came in, how many rounds of edits it went through, where it is at the schedule, it may go into copy editing immediately, or it may take some time. So do talk to your editor about when copy edits might be coming through to you, when you'll be seeing these, because that will be a part of the process as well. So it'll go through copy edits, they'll make all of their adjustments and changes, and then you will actually go through those copy edits as well as the author. Now, what you're going to be looking for is obviously if they made any changes that you may not like. So for example, if for their house style, they don't like to have the Oxford comma, but you prefer it, that's something you want to talk to your editor. Hey, can we put this back in? I find that works better with my narrative, what have you. Or, there will be author questions in there from the copy editor. Hey, this is confusing. Hey, I don't understand this. Hey, where did this come from? That you may need to clarify. So this is a portion of the editing process where you can still make changes, especially if something's unclear and been called out. But it's really important, as much as possible, to get as many changes in the original editing process, not in copy edits. Because if you start adding paragraphs in, if you start making massive changes, they have to re-copy edit those sections, which not only costs more money, it takes more time. And not only obviously do you not want to delay your publication, but you obviously don't want more cost going against your book. So that's the portion of copy editing. So you'll be working through that. Once you're done with going through the copy edits, you're happy with the changes that have been made, you've questioned everything that you may not be 100% on, you've answered all the questions, you've sent that back. This is the last time that you will most likely see the novel. Some publishers will give you the opportunity to look at proofs, not always though. So again, that's something you may want to ask your editor. How many times after we say, okay, this book is done, will I see this? When will be the last time I get to interact with this manuscript, make any last minute changes? By this point, a lot of authors are really excited to get it off their desks. They never want to see it again because they've gone through the novel so many times. But it is really important to see when will be the last time that you'll be able to make any of those changes. You can really make yourself feel great about going through and saying, yes, I love this book. I'm confident in sending it off. I'm really excited. So it is important to note that usually copy editing is that last time that you're going to have the ability to go through and see and make any changes. So you've sent it off. All of the copy edit changes are made. Now the book is going to be turned into proofs and go through proofreading. So creating proofs is when the book is actually taken from manuscript form in your Word document to actually format it. So it's going to look like what it'll look in its book form on the page. It'll generally be a PDF, but it'll be formatted. It'll have all of the fonts. It'll have any sort of images or icons you may have in there, all of the text changes, everything like that. So it'll look like a book. And they do have proofreaders go through. So now proofreaders are sort of like it's a different version of a copy editor. So obviously the copy editor's been through it. They're not looking for any massive copy editing changes, anything like that. They're sort of a last eye, just in case anything slipped through, just in case anything was missed, as well as the proofreader goes through and makes sure that your formatting looks okay. So are there any words that have broken in a weird way now that they are in the formatting in the way that it'll look on the book? Does the sentence still make sense if it breaks off here if we have this paragraph on the next page? They're looking for more consistency as far as how the book looks and flows than necessarily consistency in spelling errors like the copy editor does, although they do obviously look for both because, again, not everybody can catch everything, so they're sort of the last catch-all. Most authors don't see proofs. They're not sent back again because we're past the point of making any changes unless there's been a huge error that's been caught. So then it'll be the proofreader. Then it generally goes into if you're going to have any galleys or arcs made. So now these two terms are used sometimes interchangeably, but they are actually different. So a galley is actually a very, very early bound proof version. I'm talking they may have printed these pages and just, sort of had them bound. It's not fancy. It doesn't really look like much. It's very, very early copies that then usually the editors or the publisher can send out for early quotes, early reviews, somebody that they want to get it into their hands as soon as possible. Arcs are a bit different. So arcs are more of a publicity and marketing tool. So these are an early proof. So they are still pre-publication to the book, but an arc is more design. So they probably have a very beautiful cover. They are the right size for the book, how it's going to look once it's published. They're sent out a lot of times for book reviewers, for quotes as well, but also for more publicity, for getting people to talk about the book. And so a lot of that is also making it a very pretty package as well. So there is a little bit of a difference there. And then once that's done and you've got your quotes coming in and people are talking about your book, the editorial process is complete. Then you're just waiting for your publication date, however long that may be. And that's pretty much the editorial process that you'll normally see when you publish with a traditional publisher. Hopefully this has been helpful. If there are any terms or anything like that that I've explained in here that you'd love to hear more on, or maybe I threw out a term that you don't recognize, please let me know. The biggest thing that I think anybody in publishing will mention when you talk with them is we want to make sure people are informed and that you know what you're getting into and that you're understanding all these terms that we throw around. Once you get into there, you sort of stop thinking about the fact that people may not quite know what an arc is or what a transmittal is. So I would love to answer those questions. Definitely let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel. If you have anything else you'd love to hear about or any publishing questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And until next week, keep writing.